he requested for 5 to 7 minutes. The title of the speech is Wake Up, California. PG Melena, Wake Up, California.
Unless you have been living on a secluded island, you know that we are going through an important election cycle in our country. Fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, this year's presidential race will have historic results. We will either elect our first black president or we will elect our first female vice president. However, I want to caution all of us as Californians, do not let the historic significance of this election overshadow or hide a big problem in our own state. This evening I'd like to define and put into perspective what this big problem is. So as you're thinking of what this problem might be, it's twofold. The first is our government's appetite for spending is much too large. The second is our own ignorance as to where the money is going and our lack of initiative in finding that out. I want to give you a few examples of this very large spending. According to the California website, www.ca.gov, 58% of our state's budget, or $84 billion with a B, is dedicated to education. Now that fact alone is not a bad thing. Education is a very noble cause. But according to an article in the Sacramento Bee many months ago, over the past 5 years, we have steadily increased our spending on education. Contrast that with, over the past 5 years, each and every year, student enrollment in California's education system has declined each and every year. So I want you guys to ask yourself, where is that money going? The second example I want to give you guys with overspending. I want you guys to think for a second, what would you do with $41 billion? That's a very large number to put into perspective, I know. So I'm going to help you guys out a little bit. This is what you could do with $41 billion. You could buy a nice, what is now the median home value, a nice $330,000 home, and you can park a brand new $40,000 car in the garage, and you can do that with $41 billion for every single resident here in the city of Downey. That's 110,000 residents. That's what you could buy with $41 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, $41 billion is how much California's budget has increased over the last 4 years. So you need to ask yourselves, are you receiving 40% more public services? Are your roads, schools, and parks 40% better? Are there 40% more of them? These are the questions that you need to ask. Now I know there's probably reasoning and arguments for this spending, and that's fine. That's not the point that I'm trying to make. What I want to point out to you guys is it's very important for us as taxpayers to investigate this stuff and to look at it and to find out whether or not that money is being wasted. Is the government being reckless with your hard-earned money? There are a few things that we can do to address this. One is to have high expectations for your elected officials. Hold them to high standards. Expect them to do good with taxpayer money. Do not lower your standards for them. The second thing that you can do is to hold them accountable. If they're not being responsible with all of your money, with hard-earned taxpayer money, then vote for someone else. Do not continue to re-elect these people. Hold them accountable. And the last thing is to give them feedback. If they're doing a good job, if they're being responsible, if they're doing good with your money, if they're keeping us safe, but being responsible for your money, give them feedback. Give them positive feedback. Reinforce that. Encourage them to continue it. If they're not doing good, again, give them feedback. Let them know they're not doing good. And if you're giving them feedback, do it immediately as soon as you recognize that, and do it often. So again, this election style is important, or this election time, it's important to understand the historical aspect of this election. However, do not neglect what's going on in our own backyard here in California. So I ask you guys, please call your representatives, correspond with them in writing, email, and finally, cast your vote. Mr. Toastmaster.